All right, we're back. It's COMP1002, Web and Internet Fundamentals, Week 3, Lesson 3, Part 3. And we just talked about the 5-page site. I did a bit of a review from last week, and I'm giving you, again, additional opportunities to see the same stuff we've seen again and again. I've talked about, in the first video, we talked about your assignment number 2, that's due. And now I'm going to get right back into the PowerPoint and get into the pieces that we missed. For those of you who couldn't make the other demo that I was doing, you can make the 5-page site work. You can always find it. I'm trying to see where to kind of look there. You can always find my files on my GitHub link. And if you notice, the link would be github.com/Georgian College, right, /COMP1002 Lesson 3, right? So if I go to Georgian College, so github.com/Georgian College, you're going to see some of your lessons, last lesson from last week, the files that I put there, as well as COMP1002 Lesson 3 from today, 13 minutes ago when I updated it, right? So those two files, they're there, and all the files we worked on, my working site is here, and it has a bit of a content folder with an empty app.css page, and so on, right? So you can certainly go here if you want to. I've got 2 commits, if you notice, and commits. I've done my initial commit, which was my the initial kind of dump to GitHub, and then plus I put together a little README file, which kind of tells you that this repo highlights the idea of the 5-page site, And when I say the idea, almost like the 5-page site pattern, if you will. Okay, so if you don't have it, and if it's not working for you, go up online and grab my files, and you can do that by clicking on Download Zip if you want to try that out. You can also download the Git for desktop, and I think I mentioned that before, which is if you go to desktop.github.com, there's different versions. There's almost this little app you can download for your OS, whether it's Mac or Windows. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like this for Linux, but you can download this tool, and then you can certainly, when you go to GitHub, you can say clone in desktop, and it'll pull up your desktop app and create a folder. This whole repo will kind of be transported to a folder of your choice somewhere on your machine, right? So that's another way to do it. And the other thing you can do is if you have your own GitHub repository, you can also fork me on GitHub. And what this does, it'll physically copy this repo to your own sets of repos. It'll be something you can control, and you can use this as a kind of a jump-off point if you're going to make a 5-page site. By the way, what we're going to do is using lesson 3 here, because we're lesson 3, we might go back to this again in the future. We might say, hey, remember that 5-page site we put together? Let's go up on GitHub and download this 5-page site and start from there, as opposed to doing all this from scratch again, right? Because that's a kind of a pain in the ass to go through. We might go back to this lesson 2, as in their lesson 3, and modify it even further, like in the future, right? As we go, to make this different. I might even make another repo. Maybe we'll call it like 5-page site template or something in the future, where we have CSS in there. We'll have some basic scripting, some other stuff that we put in here, so to make it almost like a little template for you to use as a jump-off point for future projects, right? Maybe even for a test intent, right? I might say, hey, there's a test. Download some files from GitHub. Go to GitHub. Grab this stuff from GitHub. Here's your starting point. Now do this, right? Do this. Modify this page or that page and add this or subtract this, and then come up with something else. That's what you might see on a test. Some kind of practical test we might do as well, right? Because usually a lot of times we do a lot of revision work in web design. We don't do in development. We don't do many greenfield projects. Greenfield projects means like projects that come that are from scratch, right? We don't do those kind of things. Those are nice. If we start making a new project from scratch, and we've kind of done that, we have a lot of control, right? But a lot of times we do revision work. We say, take this, the same branding and style, and add something else. That's a lot of times what we do with web development, right? So revision work is kind of the majority of what we do. Okay, so that's GitHub. I'm going to kill Maya here for a second, and we talked about DreamSpark. And again, I'm doing this thing on Twitter again, right? So we're doing concept board. I'm just going to leave this messy concept board up here for today. Again, it'll be for today. And then we'll put together another one. Maybe I'll clean this up or make another one next week, right? But at the end of the day, the same flow that we're working on is what we're going to be doing today and next week. Okay, let's take a look at our PowerPoint presentation here. So we talked about text. Text being the almost like when you have text. Think about text as your copy, if you will. If I say copy to you, it means the stuff that I'm putting in my pages, the text, the content that I'm putting in my pages, and I need to mark up my text, right, with different HTML tags to create my structure, my page structure. Now, one thing that we've been doing so far is whenever I mark something up, like for example a paragraph, right, what the browser does, because the browser has basic styles, is it adds spacing between paragraphs. It aligns your paragraph and your other elements in a certain defaulted way, right? Because every browser, regardless of what it is, whether you choose to use Chrome or Firefox or something else, has its own set of styles that are built in, okay? Hear me out here. So that means that if I use some basic elements like my paragraph element, there's going to be a default style associated with that paragraph element that I don't have to write. Paragraph means I'm going to probably have some spacing around it. There might be some basic padding and so on. And how do I figure that out? How do I know what my style is? I kind of talked about this last time. If I go back to my 5-page site, so if I go back to brackets here, and I kind of launch my 5-page site that I've got going on, I'm looking at my index. Here's my index.html. And if I right-click anywhere and go inspect element, right? Inspect element. And if I inspect an element inside my page, for example, this is how my page looks. I can always go into my header, or so let's go to my main. And if I look at my first article, here's my first article, and I want to look at my paragraph tag and click onto it. On the right, you're going to see the styling that's associated with this. This is the basic styling that the page is getting. Here's my paragraph, right? And what is it doing? It's displaying it in block, and it actually is implementing some margins before and margin after. That's what this is the style that's being applied here. From a Google perspective, Google Chrome is applying styles to my paragraph tag to add some spacing or margins before and after, right, the tag element, right? On the bottom here, it also shows you a picture of how big my item is, so 1,068 pixels by 54 pixels. If I have any padding, we're going to talk about the box model later, but this is the box model. We're going to look at this later on. My padding, any kind of border, I don't have any border on here. And my margin, if you notice on the bottom, I have 16 pixel margin on the top and the bottom. I didn't put that in there. That came from my browser, right? So this is good, but why is this bad? Why is this bad that I've got basic browser styling? Anybody have an idea? Yeah.
It might change between browsers.
Might change between browsers. What's the other reason why this is bad? Anybody else have any other ideas? That's a good reason, by the way. Yeah.
It's also the default.
Default styles, right? So I'm getting the default styles. One more reason. There's another really good reason for it, right? It messes me up, right? Because it's putting styles there that I never asked for, right? So like you said, default styles. I'm getting styles, and I don't have control. For me, page layout. When I lay out my page, think about it as a developer for a second. I want to be able to do WYSIWYG. I want to have what you see is what you get. Whatever I lay out my page, I want to have absolute control over, right? This is not absolute control. This is allowing the browser to control part of my style, right? This is not how we do things. This is basic. This is how we're learning, right? But what we want to do is reset the style for our browser, get rid of these basic styles, and so that a paragraph for our website looks different than maybe for something else. It's going to have different associated padding, margin, border, whatever I want, according to what I need from my particular web design, my project, right? I'm never going to accept the basic browser styles. I want to be able to control everything on my page, okay? I know you might think I'm a control freak. Truly, you have to be when you're a developer. Think about this, okay? If you were to program something with Windows, right? And you're starting to drag and drop elements, but when you go to actually produce your app, it looks different, right? You're going to be like, what the hell? That's not supposed to be there. That's supposed to be a bigger button. That's not supposed to be a button. Why? Because imagine if it's all built in, you get built-in styles you don't want. It's a very annoying thing, right? And you might say this is, well, maybe, who cares? Maybe you like the style that this is giving you, whatever. And then when you're first learning about the web, resetting all your styles can make your page look really funny, right? Because you're looking at it just looks like nothing. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to go to the page up online, right? I want to look for reset CSS. Follow me here, right? There's some basic pages up online, some classic pages that allow you to reset the browser styles, right? That we talked about before. So here's one. It's CSS Tools Reset, Reset CSS from Meyer Web. This is an old one. This has been around for many, many years, right? Look, they're talking about like a post from May 2007 here. Still, it does what we need it to do from a basic style perspective. Here's something. And there's a bunch of there's styles right here. You can kind of copy this. These are the styles. This is what style looks like, right? From a CSS perspective, it looks like gobbledygook for most people. They look at it and they go, "Wow, that's just like spaghetti. That's like just like a bunch of jumble of nothing to me, right?" And for some people who don't know about CSS, yeah, you would see this. But here's an example of how this is done. Now, if you notice, it's been postmarked with 2011. This is the last iteration of this reset. And there's other resets out there. There are ones called normalize.css, which is also a common one to use. Let's use this one. And if you notice, it says you can grab a copy of the file here. So I'm going to right-click on, again, I'm on myersweb.com/eric/tools/css/reset, right? And I'm going to right-click here where it says grab a copy of the file. And I'm going to save the link as, right? Here's my reset CSS. I'm going to choose my desktop. I'm going to go to my my little app here that I'm making, my little project, right? And I'm going to go into content, and I'm going to drop this reset CSS right into my content, right? So save. Okay, so there, it's downloaded now, right? There's my content, right? Now I want to apply this set of styles to my content. Now here's a question, right? Where do you think my reset CSS should go? Right now, you don't know anything about style sheets. Right now, we haven't talked about it too much. We haven't talked about how to set this up in any way. But I want you to use some intuition. Where do you think this should go? Do you think it should go? Should I put my style sheet before this reset CSS sheet? Before or after my own custom CSS? This is my app.css. Yes. Before. Why before?
Because it will read from top to bottom, so it reads the reset first, then you'll reset it, and then read yours to custom. Absolutely
true. That's correct. If I put my reset after my custom app.css, it's going to reset my CSS. It's going to take everything away. All the work that I've done, it's going to go poof, and it's going to be gone. There's not going to be any styling anymore. Let me show you what no styling means, because I keep talking about no style, and browser style. Let's talk about this, right? So I'm going to go. We'll do the same thing here. I'm going to say link. Let's type it in, right? And then rel is equal to, and we'll type this in style sheet, right? And href, if you notice, there's some options here, content, and I want to hit reset.css, and I want to close my tag off, right? So now I've got my reset CSS attached to one page, my index.html. I haven't attached it to all my pages, my products, my services, my contact, and my about, because I haven't included my reset CSS, this link, in all my pages, just my index.html. Remember, if I want to make changes to every single page, every page has to be modified. If I want to add styles to every single page, every page has to have this link, right? Otherwise, it won't work properly. So let's try it on my index page and see what it looks like. So I'm going to kind of go back in here, and then let's take a look at what my index page looks like now. Okay, this is no style. You see the difference? Right? This is no style. This means that there are no paragraphs, mean nothing. Headings mean nothing. The headings are all the same. All my small tags, small, and all these other tags that we're going to learn today, they mean nothing, right? It doesn't mean anything. They're just built-in tags that we can choose to style in our own way. When we create our style guide, if you will, for our particular page, we're going to assign the styles, our custom styles, to each of these links. That's the way to do things, starting with our body tag. All right? That's what we're going to do. This is what no style means. This is like absolutely reset styles. Okay, see how blank it is, right? Let me go back and remove that. How do I remove this link here, right, without actually deleting it from my page? Anyone have an idea what to do? Yes, I can comment it out, right? So if I comment it out, I can take the beginning of this comment here. I can kind of put it, before this one, like this. And I can kind of take the end of this comment here. This is the comment block, right? And I can put it behind this one. Now that comments that whole piece out. This is just commented out. It means, and anything that's commented out or a comment inside of my page is ignored by the browser. So when the pages render, any comments aren't taken into account. They're just ignored, right? So now if I go back to my page, if I start going back to my page to see what it looks like, right? Oops. If you notice, I got my styling back, right? I got my groove back, right? Because I got all my styling went away, and now my styling is back. And you can see that there's styling for my first heading, my second heading. They look different. There's also styling for my small tag that I used, and the paragraph tags are broken up. You see this one paragraph here, and there's another paragraph underneath it, and there's all kinds of other stuff in here, right? This is all browser styling. Styles that we've inherited from the browser that we've applied to basic tags. So when I say styles, when I say browser styles in the future, you know what I'm talking about now, all right? I'm talking about the styles that are embedded in every browser that you use to look at pages, right? So I don't want that. I want to control. I'm a control freak. I want to control my page, so I want to take it away. And we won't do that now because it makes it more difficult for you to understand what these basic styles do. And it's important for you to understand. We want to kind of mimic some of this functionality here, right? And we also may choose to reset some styles, but not others, depending on how much control we want or what we want to change in our website, right? This is the way we can do things. It's like a Chinese buffet, right? It's like eat what you want and leave the rest, right? You don't have to take everything. You don't have to eat it all, right? Same thing with the way we do web design or software design. It's modular, right? We can take some pieces and we can leave the other pieces. We can leave some browser styles and reset other ones, right? And the reason why is we want to have some kind of effect at the end. We want to solve a problem, right, that we've been given. Okay, let's go back. So that's what, if I go back to my PowerPoint presentation, that's what the P element does. It kind of separates the paragraph tags as we've seen, right? We've used the small element, and it says here, part of what I say here in the PowerPoints, by the way, and this is right from the book, it talks about what they're for. What are these tags for semantically? Which means if from a human readability and a W3C standards perspective, what should they be used for? And look what it says, used for disclaimers, caveats, legal restriction, copyrights, attribution for satisfies and licensing requirements, and so on. That's why the small tag makes sense for a footer that has a copyright statement. Makes more sense than an H4. H4 will almost look the same, but an H4 is semantically incorrect. It'll do the same stuff, but remember, we're using our default browser styles to affect the change to this thing. So a small tag, right, is what we really want. Small means our text should be small, right? And whether we use custom styles or the built-in styles of our browser. Okay. I know it's kind of a funny thing. Like, you're going to say to me, Tom, why would I ever do that? Why would I ever want to reset my browser styles? It's really hard to work with, right? It's more difficult to work with a reset system. Yes, it is. It's more difficult. But in modern web design, we always do it. We remove all browser styles in order for us to gain control. But with control, you know what they say, right? With great power comes great responsibility, right, Spider-Man? So that means that you have to wield your power right? If I wipe out my styles, I got to put them all back in, right? That means I've got to customize every single one of those tags, right, to create my style guide, right? Which means there's a lot more work involved, and that's why people don't like to do it. Okay, let's go back. The strong element, again, would be for, it denotes important text. We talked about the strong element last week. And if I want to make something emboldened, if you will, I use the strong element, right? If I want to emphasize something, right, then I use the M element. And the M element, what it does is, or tag, what it does, it italicizes something, italicizes, right? So I have italicized text or bolded text. Again, you might say, hold on. If what you're telling me is true, Tom, then I should never use the M or strong tag, right? Because I'm going to affect those areas, as an example, with CSS. Well, yes, you're right, but I'm going to make my strong and my emphasis tags mean something else, right? I'm going to rewrite what the basic style that a strong tag or an element tag would have, and apply those styles to my pages. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. So, but it means semantically what it means is I want that piece of text to mean it's important, right? That's what I'm using the strong. That's why I'm using strong around it. And from a screen reader perspective, right, when screen readers read that, they understand that this bold text means there's to be some emphasis when I'm reading it, right? Like bold, something bold. Okay. And this is the way to do it. We've talked about how to, you know, kind of there's always a starting tag. You're going to see this pattern, starting tag again and ending tag with a backslash, or sorry, a forward slash and the name of the tag. And anything that's in there is the actual element itself. The element's composed of the tags along with the text that's included in the tag, any attributes, and the closing tag. Okay? How about figures or something, right? I have a chart, photo, a graph, illustration, something else. I can add in something called a figure element, right, that goes around it. Okay, so it's not just the image, but I can surround it with a figure element, right? The figure element kind of indicates that, you know, this figure, it's something that we're looking at almost like if I give you some kind of a cutout of a text, some kind of like this is a figure right here. See what you're seeing here on my PowerPoint. This thing here, right? Let's say is figure 6, right? Which is on page 6. It's showing you a slice of code, HTML code, right? Even though it looks like it's text, it's actually an image, right? It's a figure, right? So how do I include something like this in my page? Well, I can include first my image, the image itself, plus I can surround the image, right, with, here's my image tag right here. I can surround my image tag with this figure markup tag, and the reason why I'd want to do that is to indicate to screen readers and from a semantic perspective how it's going to look on the page. It's going to be slightly different from a styling perspective, right, than it would look if I just put the image element by itself. Let's show you that, what I'm talking about here, right? So I want to put a basic a placeholder image in my document here, and I'm here on my index.html. I'm going to go to my products page, right? And in my products page, I want to highlight a certain product, right? I want to put the product underneath my paragraph tag on my products page. So follow me here on my products page, please. You should have your own products page now. I want to put an image, okay? Now, I don't have any images in my assets, and if I did, I would link to my image in my assets. But sometimes, for now, from a placeholder perspective, we can use something called placeholder.com. Let's go there, and I'll show where that is. If I go to placeholder, here it is, placeholder, right? If I go there, this is what my placeholder text is. If I want an image that's 350 by 150, it's going to give you this little gray object right here. It's going to look like this. So if I want to, it's almost like a placeholder for an image. This is where my image is going to be. All right? So I can use this text, right? My image, this little markup right here. I can copy this thing, right? On placehold.it, right? And go back into my brackets, right? And kind of put that in, like by just pasting it in. There it is. So here's my source. Here's my image. My source is this link online. And you know what? 350 by 150 is fine. All right. So let's put my image in place. Okay. And now I'm going to go back to my live site, right? So I can see what it's going to look like, right? So here's my image, right? It's a placeholder image that comes up, right? I don't have a real image right now, but I have a placeholder. Okay. So this is okay. This is an image that I've got. Let's suppose this looks like I don't know. It's my widget that I'm selling, my product that I'm selling to you, whatever my widget is, right? If I want to give this thing some more styling semantically, I want to wrap my image tag. We haven't talked about image tags too much. I want to wrap my image tag with a figure, right? That's what I'm going to do. So let me go do that. So here I've got my image tag, and my image tag looks like this. IMG for the image, right? SRC attribute that points to the source. This could be a source that's local, right? Or a source that's on the web, some other place, right? This is what I'm doing here. And then some kind of closing tag. If I was going to type this thing from scratch in brackets, let's try this out. I'm going to type my image IMG tag and press tab. It's going to give me the same thing. One thing this is missing is the alt attribute. What's an alt attribute for? Right? Yeah.
Screen reader.
Screen readers. It actually gives me some alternate text for what this thing is. So remember, the screen reader can't see what my image is. All right, you know, the person who's got problem seeing, vision impaired person, right? They can't see my image, right? Even if it was not just a placeholder, it wasn't just a gray box, right? Some fancy image, you can't see it, right? So I need to kind of, from a best practice perspective, add this alt tag in there. And that's why it's included in our, when you start typing. So let's add it in anyway. So say alt, and we're going to say, you know, placeholder image. That's 350 by 150. That's really what it is. Okay. An alt tag. It doesn't really. This doesn't actually come up. You won't see this at all on my image, right? Let me see what it looks like when I go back. If I go back to my page now, I refresh my page, and if I hover over it, I don't get any kind of alt. If I kind of do a right click and view page source, though, right? Here's my view page source. And if I go back in here, I can see that the alt tag is here, right? So it's physically in my, it's been rendered into my page. When I right, in my products.html site. However, right, it doesn't actually appear. There's nothing that physically appears in my website. It's there, but it's hidden. All right, let me just kill some of this and go back to this and recharge my lightning bolt here. There we go. Okay, so now I'm connected again. All right, so that's one thing. So I want to wrap this image tag in this figure tag. So when I go here, I'm going to go figure, right? And I'm going to take my figure tag. Remember that I want to put my figure around. So I'm going to cut this out to put it down here. And I'm going to put it in there. Maybe tab in just to give it a little bit more style. So my figure tag surrounds my image tag. Now, if I look to see what any effect it had, if I go back to my page, there's no difference. Right? I'm not like getting a different page here. Well, hold on. What's happened? What's happened here? What have I got? What has this done? Right? It's actually giving me a little bit of margin. Right? That's what my figure has done. It's actually indented my image into my page. Again, if you want to see the styling that it's given us, and this is a great way to do things. Right-click on the page and inspect element. If I can click on the actual element itself and inspect element, it'll take me right to that element. Here it is, and if you notice, right, I can see my element style by clicking on it, if there is anything. Here's my figure. My figure adds in margin before and margin after, and I also have, you can see if I look at my box that I have here, I have 40 pixel margin on the left and 40 pixel margin on my right for this image. This figure actually does that. So when I put the figure element, it actually adds in margin, right, but no padding, margin around my object. So actually, you know, give me some space. That's what margin is. We'll talk about margin in a little bit for what it is. Okay, so that's really what it is in a nutshell. Let's just X out of this and go back to this, and I'm still got my lightning bolt. That's good. Okay, that's one thing. Now the other thing that you can also add along with your figure element is the fig caption, right? And this is kind of a legend or some kind of information about what the content's about. An example would be this. If you look at this example, it says a breakdown of revenue by industry. If I was going to make some kind of pie chart, right? I could say this is my placeholder image too, for my fig caption. And it's going to be in between my fig caption tags, but that's within, it's nested within my figure element. Let's show you what I'm talking about here. So here's my figure element, and I'm going to put a fig caption in here. So I'm going to go fig caption, right? And into my fig caption, I can put in some information. This is my placeholder image, right? Whatever I want. I'll save it. And when I go back out to my site there, right, and if I refresh, I can see that I get my fig caption text right here, right? Let me ask you this question. Let me go back to my PowerPoint here. My fig caption element, here is my fig caption, right? And also, if you notice, there's some other marks that they've put in here. This B and B, that's kind of bold. We don't want to. I don't want to use B for bold. I never want to use, you know, those kinds of tags in my HTML. They exist. B and I. B for bold. I'm going to talk about them. I'm not going to test you on them. And I'm not going to. I haven't put them on my PowerPoint presentation. They do exist in the book. They talk about the B and the I element. B is for bold. I is for italics. We don't use those. Why? I don't never want to see those on your pages. I want to use styling to target this areas of my page to use, and I want to have all my styles in my style sheet. Because once I embed B's and I's in my page, it's page specific. That means my style could be different. It's inconsistent from one page to the other. I don't want that. And I'm depending on the browser styling for my bold and my italics. I don't want that. I want it to be part of my style sheet. Okay, so that's why I don't do that. Okay, so that's what it does. It kind of gives me a little caption, a fig caption, if you will, of what this thing's about. Okay. Again, with no kind of a styling whatsoever right now. Okay, so there's my caption text. Let's continue. How about if I have a citation, or as an example, I can use the cite element. So for example, let's say if I grab something from Wikipedia, right? Let's go to Wikipedia for a second. And a lot of you will go to this for your assignment number 2. You might go to Wikipedia and look up some kind of special gadget like you like. Like for example, I don't know, let's look up a 3D printer. That kind of changed the world, right? 3D printer, I don't know what that is. And I scroll down and I want to find my 3D printer on Wikipedia. There it is, 3D printing on Wikipedia. And they even have some images about the 3D printer. So I'm going to go here and go to 3D printing. And it gives me an image about what it looks like. This is kind of one of the first ones, which is a MakerBot as an example. And I want to take this thing right here, which is 3D printing, also known as additive manufacturing, is any various process used to make a three-dimensional object. Okay, I want to take this whole thing right here, right, this whole text. I want to copy it, right, and I want to put it inside my site, right. So we go back to brackets, and I want to talk about this as you know, a citation, right. So maybe what I want to do is maybe this thing is about this is my 3D printer, this gadget that I've got in here, and in my article, right, still in my article, I want to put in this citation. So I can kind of, first of all, I'll copy my text in there, 3D printing, also known as additive manufacturing. And then what I want to do is use a cite reference by going cite right in here, and oops, if I can actually spell properly. And then what I want to do is kind of put the cite, surround this, my little citation here as a cite, right? So what does this do to my page? Otherwise, how does it look now? If I go back to this page, right, and if I refresh, it shows my citation in italics, right? Here's my citation down here. Now it's kind of really close to my copyright statement. I really don't like that. And sometimes what I do with my citations, even though they're like this, is I put them inside a paragraph tag anyway, their own paragraph tag. So I might layer it. I might say I put a paragraph tag, and inside my paragraph tag, I might have some information about my article, and then inside that article, I might have a citation that's inside my paragraph tag, right? Or its own paragraph tag. Remember, paragraph tags don't necessarily mean, they're not for paragraphs, but they're for text, content that you want to put on your site as well. All right, so let's go back. So inside, around my citation, I have a paragraph tag here, and maybe I want to put a paragraph tag around my citation, right? Because that makes semantic sense to me. I love how this works. Okay, and we'll put it right over here. And once I got my paragraph tag there, I get a little bit more styling, and I probably would target my paragraph tag with a certain class, typically. For default paragraphs, what would they look like for my type of page? Let's go back to my site here and refresh. And now you can see that it's got a bit of space between my citation. This is my citation, which is in italics. That's the default style. And my footer, right? It's in a paragraph. And it's also separation between this piece, my fig caption, my placeholder image. And by the way, there's no style here. Typically, my fig caption I would place underneath, you know, whether it's before or after my my image. If I wanted to change that around, I could do that. I could put my fig caption before or after. So take this fig caption from here, this element, and move it after my image tag. Right, there it is. And then when I go back to my page, then right, I would have this over here. And so this what I would do with style, and I would put this fig caption underneath. Or I could always hide it. I could hide my fig caption unless I hover over it or something like that. I could do that too. Sometimes what we also do with fig captions and images is we can put a title tag, right? Remember we did that before. Let's go back there. And so in my image, I can put a title attribute. That's exactly what the alt tag is. So I got my alt tag, right? I want to copy it and kind of make a space and kind of put another alt tag, but change the second alt tag to a title, right? And let's see what that does. If I refresh my page, if I go back to my page and refresh, right, and I hover over my my image, I get this little placeholder that says placeholder image 350 by 150. It kind of does this little context-sensitive pop-up, like a tooltip that pops up that says, "Hey, this image here is is what it is," right? So it gives me some more information about the image if I hover over it, right? As an example, and I got to hover away and hover back for me to see that again, right? So there's my placeholder image, and I did that by putting a title tag or title attribute right here inside my image. Right, that's what I've done. A title attribute. The title attribute here isn't the same as my title attribute on the top. This title attribute is for the page, right? But this title attribute here is for the image, for that particular element. Okay? So I got my citation. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. Oops. PowerPoint, I said. All right, so sometimes what they do is they use it for a person's name. Sometimes they do that. They put cite around a person's name and make it italics. Kind of change the person's name to italics, right, to indicate that that person is, that person is the person who cited this particular thing, right? I don't believe it's the right thing to do. Just like it says here, many developers plan to continue using cite on names associated with quotes. I don't recommend it. I think you should use cite for what it's meant to be from a semantics perspective. Just for stuff you've taken from articles. One thing we may want to add in into our stuff is, we want to kind of add in a little mark that says Wikipedia, right? We kind of indicate where it came from, right? So we're citing we have a citation, and we're going to do something like this. We can put, sometimes what you also see is this is in quotations, right? So instead of a cite tag, this is another way we can do this. I'll take this away. I'll put this down here. And I'm going to use Wikipedia, right, as my citation. And instead of a paragraph tag, I want to make this a quotation. And this is what they're talking about here. And some people, what they say is this is semantically incorrect, right? Because you're not citing a name of where you're getting it from. It's from Wikipedia, right? So this is how normally it looks, right? This is what you normally see. Look. Quotations, 3D printing, also known as additive manufacturing, is any of various processes used to make a three-dimensional object, and then dash dash. And if you notice, the Wikipedia is a citation. We use the cite to kind of make it italics. And they're saying in our PowerPoint presentation, this is wrong, right, from a semantic perspective. And I agree. If you want something to be italics or emphasized, as an example, then use the proper tag. Cite is to cite information that came from somewhere. If you notice what it says here. Right. Also, you know what? Even if I did this, and let's leave it this way. Let's suppose that I agree with this, right? I still want to separate my 3D this citation from my copyright statement. So I'm still going to probably put it inside its own paragraph tag anyway. So I got a paragraph tag, right? And then my paragraph tag, I've got a quotation that I'm going to talk about here. Right? There's my quotation, right? And now when I go back to my site, it looks like this. It kind of got a little bit of separation, and I've got my citation in there. Again, not always a good way to do these things. And semantically, there's a challenge out there that says, some people say they don't agree with it. For you guys, if you guys are going to make a citation, I'll be honest with you, I'd be okay with it if you did it this way, because you're still using the cite tag to quote where it came from, right? That's why you're using it. But semantically, you might be challenged. Okay, let's go back. So that's this piece. We talked about quoting text with a Q element, and again, if you notice, the Q element stands on its own. I recommend, however, that you put the Q element within a P element, right? When you're doing a quotation, you put the Q element, the quotation. That's what actually it creates quotation marks inside of in the body of your document. That's what it adds, right? And I recommend that. And also, they tell you that you may want to add the lang attribute if the quote isn't in a default language. For example, if you're getting a quote from somewhere else, like if it's something in Greek, as an example, right? Then you want to kind of indicate that it's Greek. For screen readers, this is where it really helps, right? It kind of indicates that language. Okay, what about this block quote? How is the quote different from a block quote element, right? So let's check that out. So I want to change my quote element to a block quote, and let's see what it does from a styling perspective. So I'm going to change my Q here to block quote, right? Take this and then just replace my my Q element here with a block quote. And what does it do from a styling perspective? If you kind of look at it, it kind of indents it, yeah? So it kind of indents it like just like my picture gets indented, my image gets indented from the figure, right? When I put a figure, if I wrap a figure around my picture, it indents it. And it does the same thing for my block quote. My block quote kind of pushes my quotation inside my document like this. That's what it does. Guys, I know this isn't like super exciting, okay? So if I was gonna come up with this and I'm talking to you about this, you're not like, holy crap, Tom, you've changed my life now that you've told me how to put a quotation tag around text. I don't expect that. I'm going over it with you so you see them. You can certainly read the PowerPoint presentation on your own, right? But I'm going through to tell you where it's done. So, and I know it's nitpicky, but I'm going to test you on it, right? So if I don't talk about it and I ask you to do it and you don't know, if I haven't spoken about it, yeah, it's boring as hell to tell you how to use quotation and whatever, when to and when not to. But it's part of what we need to do here, right? So bear with it as much as possible, please. I know it's not like exciting material. Okay, let's go back. But it gets more exciting. The web, you can do a lot of stuff with web. And that's why I'm not going to go over how to do this. Oh, here's something. If desired, you can also add a URL, site is equal to URL, where URL is the source of the quote. That's interesting that you can do as well, right? So if I go back to my citation example here, and if you notice, I'm wondering if I put it in here. Here's my fig caption. I want to make sure that I got this in properly for you. Yeah. I want to make sure that I've got the text, and I don't think I included the HTML in here for you guys, unfortunately. But I wanted to make sure that you can see it. So yeah, you can add in a where you got this thing from. So if I go site is equal to, if I type site equals to a URL, where the URL is the source of the quote, and I wonder if I kept that thing, my Wikipedia link, I did, right? So here's my source of the quote. Forgot to include that. How do I put that in? So, oh wait, I got a bit of an issue. What's my issue here? Block quote, here's my P element, and it's giving me an issue, saying, hey, Tom, something's wrong with a paragraph element. What could be wrong with my paragraph element? Anybody have an idea? The question should be, should a block quote be put into a paragraph tag? And the answer is probably not, because that makes no sense. Now it's a block quote. Now it's kind of almost looks like a paragraph of its own. So semantically it's not correct, and that's why it's complaining. So if I take this away, and I take this away, then I have no problems, right? So what it's saying here is if I say something like this, site is equal to, and then in quotations, I'm going to paste that in there. So HTTPS, blah, 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 right? Now look what it's doing. It's giving me a bit of an error, right? It's saying, hey, Tom, this isn't working for you. What are you trying to do? And if I was to do this from scratch, so if I say something like this, site, right, is equal to, oh, URL. Sorry, I forgot the URL. Again, it's all things. So where the URL is equal to this, so I did it right. Sometimes it'll complain. This is where I like, I'll be honest with you, if I go back to Visual Studio, why I choose to use Visual Studio, right? So here's my Visual Studio 2013. Again, by the way, if you try to download 2013 from DreamSpark, it doesn't exist anymore, right? Yeah, it's only 2015 now, right? Because they've updated their version of Visual Studio to 2015. If you try to get it, you would notice that it's not there. So I want to do a quick new project here to show you what I'm talking about. I want to use Citation, right? So I'm going to kind of create a new web project. I don't want to log in for a second. A new blank web project. I'm going to call this web project COMP1007. 1007? I'll be all right. COMP 2007.
No, 1002.
Thank you. Empire 2. And then I'll say lesson 3, right? So I'm kind of making a new project here. I'm not going to share it on Git. I'm just going to kind of do it for us for here. I'm going to choose an empty project and kind of come in here. The great thing about Visual Studio, although it's 70 million lines of code, it gives you, there's advantages for using it. I'm just going to make a new index.html here to show you this, right? So I'm going to go add and HTML page. Oops, HTML page. One more time. HTML page. And if I put index.html, here's my code in Visual Studio, and again I'm on the Windows side here. I get some basic stuff. I don't want this, right? Because I think this is poor, right? For my thing, but I do want lang is equal to English for my page. I do want that, and I want my meta tags. I'm going to build this page up pretty quickly here. Let's take a look here. Character set is equal to UTF-8, and you know I want my meta tag for my name is equal to viewport, and content is equal to width is equal to device width initial scale 1. I made a mistake. That's okay. I'm still typing fast to make this quick. And then maybe I've got some kind of title, as an example for my page, which is my title, whatever. That's my page. But down here, I want to put a citation in here, and I want to start typing. So I start typing cites, right? If I type this, cites, right? And if I start pressing, if I press space, or if I go equals, right? And if I start, Control V for paste, it's going to tell me what the issue is, right? So here's, I'm going to kind of close this tag off. If there's a problem, I'm going to scroll over, and it's going to say, it says missing attribute name, right? And that's what we're missing. So name, if I go one of those, that works from a thing. It gives you code hinting, right, to understand what this means, right? Now, if I made a mistake, because on the PowerPoint isn't showing the correct thing, right? But in the code hinting that we get here on the Microsoft side is a lot stronger when it comes to the stuff we get. Also, again, like I said, you're paying for it with 70 million lines of code. Lots of code. It's a fat editor, but it gives you a lot more stuff here. And we talked about how you can, if I had my page structure, if I was to set up a folder here on the Microsoft side, and I called it content, and if I added in again, some kind of CSS page, was my style sheet, so app.css, and if I wanted to include my app.css in my index.html underneath my title tag, I would just drag and drop, right? So that kind of is a fast way, much quicker way of developing. From a rapid application development, Visual Studio can be pretty awesome. But again, it's platform specific. It only works with Microsoft products, and it's 70 million lines of code. But it does check some of this stuff out. So if I was going to do a citation here for my name, and I added in citation, like my citation, whatever it is, and I wanted to render this to the page and see what it looks like in Chrome, right? Then I would just kind of run this thing, and there's my citation, right? Now notice how, even though I've mentioned the URL, my citation, there's no difference from a rendering perspective. If I right-click and inspect element here, my citation shows, right? If I kind of bring this up so you guys can see this, my citation shows my actual link. This is where I got it from, right? But it doesn't actually do anything on the page. It doesn't go anywhere. It's not for that. It's for, you're going to cite where it came from. That's what you're doing with it, okay? Just want to show you that quickly. So that's what the problem is here. It's not because I did it incorrectly. It's just I forgot my name attribute. Okay, so let's go back to my PowerPoint to get through this, right? For my URL, time. This is interesting. If I want to specify a time in my on my website, a specific date as an example, I have the time and date or DateTime attribute that I can use, right, inside the time element. So what does this look like? Again, if you look at it, it says time, that's the element, and inside there is the DateTime element where you put in kind of a format, the DateTime format. I wonder if it's going to show you here somewhere. Here it is. There's the DateTime format here for year, year, dash month, month, dash day, day, and then separated by hour, hour, month, minute, minute, and second, second. That's what it does. That is the default way of doing your and again, this is machine specific. One thing that, as a warning, is that not all browsers will render this properly, right? It's browser specific. This is one element that you may see, and it may not work cross browser. So how do I know if I want to use an element that it's available across all browsers? How can I check that? Does anyone know? Okay, here's a website for you. Check this out. I always try and give you more resources. I'm going to just wipe out this one. and go to one of my favorite websites, which is caniuse.com. Caniuse.com, right? So if you want to check to see if an element is available on your platform, you can go to caniuse.com and scroll down to see if that element is there, right? And again, I'm going to go down to the time element if it's there, right? So there's all other HTML features. I can also search for the top if I don't see it. So I'm going to say time. So there's my time element, right? And if I see a time element, you see that it says date and time input types. Take a look at the support I get cross-browser. Can I use is one question. Should I use is the other one. Should I use the time element when I design my sites right now, currently in today's internet? What's your suggestion, peoples of the world? What do you think? Keith, what do you think? You think I should use the time and a date input elements in my web page when I design my websites?
It can't hurt.
It hurts. Here's where I tell you. See how the support looks like globally? I only have 65% adoption globally, which means 35% of my market is going to be, you won't see the time element whatsoever, right?
But knowing how Chrome is used worldwide as #1, it offers that feature if I'm reading that chart correctly.
It offers that feature for a large part of the world, but there's other parts of the world, and I don't know if I showed you this one, GSStatCounter. Let's go to GSStatCounter.com for a second. This is a very interesting site as well. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this one. Did I show you this one?
Yeah.
So GSStatCounter.com, I like to go on this one because what it tells me is, worldwide, and I'm going to go into a bar graph for a second. Worldwide, what's the most popular browser? And let's take a look at other browsers. So Chrome definitely worldwide has 48% market share, right? So half the browsers out there are going to be able to see it. Half, right? Worldwide. Some areas, right, you're going to see a better adoption, right? So for example, in Canada, if I was to go into just Canada alone, so I don't care about the rest of the world, let's say my market is only Canada, right, over the last year, from August 2014 to August 2015, let's say, right? Because we're not quite into September, the end of September yet, so pretty much last year. Let's see where Chrome is at from Canada. Canada most likely is going to be one of the #1 browsers, just like it is in the rest of the world. But there are some places like Europe where Chrome isn't the most popular browser, right? Where it's Firefox, right? And does Firefox, so Chrome definitely, Chrome has 37% market share, even less than the rest of the world, right? It's not half. IE is big. Right, still, Internet Explorer, right, is 22% market share. Safari, the Apple product, is 21% market share, and Firefox is 14%. So these numbers, when I go to Can I Use, right, as an example, when it says 65% globally, right, well, it's not supported in IE, right, so that means that's 20% market share, right, that I saw on these sites here. So here's IE, 22% market share is gone. So 20% of your audience can't see your time, that element of the thing you're trying to do, right? Edge is supported, but Edge, like, it just got adopted now. I mean, a lot of people have access to Edge with Windows 10, right? So Edge can do it, which is good. That's a good thing. That means it blocks out old IE, right? But Firefox, all right, let's go to Firefox. Firefox is big, man. That's another 14%. So between 14% and that's like 35% of people, let's say, or 36% of people can't see that time element whatsoever. How about Safari? So go to Safari, even people on a Mac with Safari, or even iOS, or iOS can see it, but Opera Mini can't. The Android browser is good, and Chrome for Android is okay, right? But so even Safari. So we're talking about, like, again, 36 plus another another bit. So the majority of people in Canada wouldn't be able to see your time element. That's what this is basically saying, right? So my recommendation to you is when you're trying to build up a page with some kind of fancy feature like time, I don't recommend you use it because it doesn't make any sense for your market. Your market won't see that. Use the most common features, and if you want to show time, use CSS styling to be able to render that element in different ways, right? That's the way we do it. Not because, remember, it's just not identified. HTML is not necessarily a one big standard. It's a grouping of standards, HTML5. And some parts of it have been adopted, and some parts of it have not, right? So that means there's some parts of HTML that are not cross-platform, not cross-browser yet, right? So you don't necessarily want to use them. Okay. An example of that is if I want to use, if I go back, if I want to use something like HTML imports. Okay, I want to use HTML imports. So that means a method of including and reusing HTML documents in other HTML documents. It's a neat idea, HTML imports, right? But guess what? Almost nobody supports it. Only Chrome and Opera, right? So it's only 45% globally. And I'm telling you right now, as a senior web developer, I would never use this HTML imports because chances are it won't work for a lot of browsers. We're not talking about older versions of IE. I'm talking about like Safari and other browsers too. Why would I want to lose market share? I'm targeting an audience out there, and that means 65% of the people out there that are using other products won't be able to see my, whatever I'm doing with HTML, especially if, let's say, if I imported the nav bar, right? So I'm importing my nav bar because I don't want to do all that work of copying my nav from one page to the other, and I use this HTML5 imports, kind of function, but it doesn't work. Right? So that's what I recommend. Take a look at Can I Use. It's one site that helps you understand whether you want to import it or not. So although it's included in your PowerPoint, time and date time tags and so on aren't something that's supported 100% or close to 90%. I'm not going to show you this feature. It's there. If you want to use it, you can certainly use it. But chances are there's going to be some browsers that it won't work for. And remember, that's why we reset browser styles. We reset browser styles because I want control, right? I'm a control freak. I want control. And if I lose control because something isn't rendering on my page, that's a problem, especially if you're doing it for a client and there's going to be some people that are going to try and access that page and they say, but I can't see the timestamp. Maybe the timestamp is important for some reason or another. But there's other ways of putting this on, and you don't have to use the DateTime attribute to do it. That's all I'm saying. You can make your own custom element and effects using JavaScript and CSS and other things to take care of it for now. Here's one, an abbreviation. This is popular, so I have some kind of abbreviation. Like, for example, let's say my article for my services. Let's go to my services page now, right? Here's my services page. And in my services page, I'm talking about, there might be a paragraph. Let's add a paragraph tag in here. Follow me here, guys. So a paragraph tag. This is my paragraph tag. I talk about mean time to repair, right? So we guarantee, right, an MTTR, right, of 4 hours, right? MTTR. Now, if you didn't know what I was talking about, you're like, what the hell is MTTR, right? What the hell is MLB? Right? What the hell is any of these other abbreviations we use all the time, right? Well, you can use your abbreviation tag, and if I go back to the PowerPoint so you can see what it is, I can use my abbreviation tag, right, to kind of specify with my title attribute what it is. It's optional. I don't have to use my title, but that's what it expands to, right? So if I hover over my abbreviation, my title tag will kind of say, hey, this is what it really is, right? And if you notice what it says here, if I say inside my abbreviation, I have my, where it says light amplification by, that's my title, light amplification by stimulated emission, so that's laser, right? Well, it's the same thing. So here's my, I kind of hug or I sandwich my, my abbreviation in ABBR, right? So let's go back, let's go to what I'm showing. So ABBR is the tag, right? ABBR. And what I want to do is I want to put my MTTR within my abbreviation to indicate to the screen reader that it's an abbreviation. And in my title attribute, right, I want to kind of put in what it is, which is, it stands for mean time to repair. That's what it is, right? Mean time to repair of 4 hours, right? Abbreviation. And if I was going to launch my services page, I'm going to save this thing. I'm going to go back to the web here, and it says, hey, we guarantee an MTTR of 4 hours. And if I hover over it, right, it tells me mean time to repair, right? Mean time to repair. It's my abbreviation. Okay. By the way, you could have done this with a span element too. We're going to talk about a span element. What's a span element for anybody who remembers? If you guys have ever done any basic HTML or anything before, We have our div tags, right? We also have a span tag. What's a span tag for, right? It's a generic tag that we can use within a paragraph or something like that to indicate a grouping of words or something else. I want to add styles to the grouping of words. So I can also use a span tag, which is a generic tag, as opposed to an abbreviation tag. Abbreviation is very specific. It's semantically correct. A span tag has no semantics whatsoever. It means it's just a generic element. We want to kind of target an area. I can use a span tag if I want to do something special with my style, right? But we know if it's an abbreviation I'm doing, the abbreviation tag or ABBR tag is the right element or right tag to use here. Okay? And that's what this one is. Again, some of these are pretty straightforward. Definition element, the DFN element, right? Again, if you're curious about if this was supported, right? I go to caniuse.com and I put in the DFN tag, right? And I press enter, right? As an example. And if it says 0 results found, right? Let's go back. So I go back to this, and I want to look and see if my definition. Do you see a definition tag in here, right? My DFN tag, if it's supported, it'll tell you if there's a problem with the tag. The other place to check, and I kind of brought it up in your on your assignment number 2. It's right in your assignment number 2. If you look at it, on the bottom it says, hey, check your. Make sure you do your HTML has valid HTML, your HTML page has valid HTML, by checking it with this validator.w3.org, right? So how do I do that? Now, it's hard to do this with my local file here because it's got to look at my local file in order for me to do that. You'll see in a second. So if I actually go here to this link, right, here's my link, validator.w3.org. It's going to ask me for my address to try and validate my code, right? Now I have my little site here that I'm working on. Here it is. And I want to validate that this is good. I can try and grab my local host, 127, whatever. Here's my copy as an example. And I can try and go back to my page that I got, which is this one, and put it in, right? I can put that in and press check. But somehow what happens is because I'm not running it on a server, right, it can't access my local hosts, right? Try this out here, right? What if I just put, instead of 127, I just put local hosts, right? Which is the exact same thing. Well, I can't validate my page because my local host doesn't exist for them. Their 127.0.0.1 address is for their local host, not for me. They can't look at my files because I'm not physically hosting my site anywhere. It's just local to me. So the only way I can use my site validator to check to see if my markup is valid is if I have a valid website. Let's think about a valid website to look at, like apple.ca. That's a valid website. So I can put that in there, apple.ca, and if I click check, right, for my validator, what it'll do is it'll go through that the first landing page. It takes a while sometimes because if it's a bigger site, it'll go through and give you some issues where it thinks that you need to put some stuff or change things. For example, there's an error that it sees in the meta tag, right? It says an element with the tag HTTP equiv attribute whose value is blah, blah, blah. It must have a content attribute with the value of IE edge, and it doesn't, like this, IE emulate IE7, because that's the old tag. The new tag for W3 standards is IE / or IE is equal to edge, because guess what? There is no more IE, it's gone, right? So that's the new tag. So what this validator does, it goes through and checks to see if there's any errors in your page. So this is a great little check to do when you do your page. That's what this W3 or validator.w3.org does, right? And I'm going to check your pages with this thing. So when you do your pages for assignment number 2, I'm going to go through and I'm going to go through your page and see if there's a problem. So you should do it first, right, to avoid this. Okay, I'm going to skip some of these because they're pretty straightforward, right? Superscripts and subscripts. It creates a number for the superscript or the subscript. Again, some of this I'm not going to read through, like I talked about before. The address element is something that I want to really briefly talk about before we end for the day. And then I'm going to give you there's a lab that's due, by the way, by the end of today. So by the end of tonight, there's a lab that's due. If you want to take a look at your weekly work here, if you go to weekly content, there's a lab that says is due, a little practice that you want to do by the end of the day. It's due tonight, worth 2% of your final mark, right? But I'll keep talking. So the address attribute here, sometimes what we see is we see BR tags or line break tags associated with your address. So when do we use the address tag? We use it when we do our contact page, as an example. We want to put together an address, right? Sometimes we also use it for my address, like my www address, my web page address, right? Let's use it for what I'm talking about here. Oops. Let's use it for my contact page. I'm going to go to my contact page here, and instead of my article being here as a contact us, my paragraph tag, let's change my paragraph here from my contact page into an address. So I'm going to start typing address, right? And in my address, I want to kind of put in my address. So example is my company limited, right? What my company is called, and I want to put a BR tag for a break. So here's my BR tag. Underneath my company limited, I'm gonna put in some kind of address information like 123 my company road. I'm big, right? My company road, right? And maybe I'm gonna put my city. So let's say my city dot my province, whatever my province is, right? And then BR, just like you normally would do an address. And then a phone number, right? So you might have some kind of a telephone tag, right? Right? Telephone. Oops, if I can actually do this properly. So tel tag. My telephone is, let's say, whatever postal code or area code is 416. We'll use 416 number instead of 705. The classic 555-5555, right? And then some kind of BR again, a line break. That's what you see a lot, right? And I'm going to save this thing, and I want to run it now in my browser. Let's see what it looks like really quickly. So here's my contact form. This is what you get. Take a look, right? So my company and my city and it looks like it italicized everything again that's inside my page, right? Maybe again I want to put my stuff. I want to surround this in a section. Which I've kind of already done. So it's in my main article here. It's got its own address and it's my title's an H1 title, but very little styling here. All right, that's what it's doing. Okay, and if I want to make a link, I can always do one of these. I can say something like href is equal to, here's my telephone tag, which is 416-555-5555. And again, you don't have to remember this, but now it's a link. As an example that I put in there, and maybe instead of a telephone link, we'll make it an A tag, so it's an actual link, right? Sometimes you'll see this on some pages, right? Let me just go back and refresh, and now it's a link. And if I actually click this on your phone, it'll actually dial out for you. That's what it'll do using the tel. And for the most part, we've covered the most of what we're doing. But what this PowerPoint presentation covers is most common elements that you want to put in. Again, I'm just going over some of the most common ones that you've seen. We don't really mark up code too much in here, so I'm not going to talk about that. That's if you're a developer and you're showing off your code. Sometimes you want to pre-format something. Give me one more minute, guys, and then you guys can go, right? And if we want to highlight text, a lot of this stuff that you're going to see here, whether we're highlighting text, this is what we just did, a line break, right? It forces a line break manually onto the page as opposed to using CSS. You can certainly use CSS instead of doing this, and I highly recommend the other way. But what this PowerPoint presentation is really doing, and today's topic is really around how do I manipulate text with the most common elements that I have in my HTML, right, with our basic browser styling, right? Okay, so if you're going to rely on basic browser styles, what are the common elements? You should kind of know in your head. We've covered the most important ones, the paragraph and so on. But that's really it for me for today. Okay, so remember your lab is due by tonight, right? At midnight, you have all night to do it. Otherwise, remember assignment 3 is due 2 weeks from now. Next week, I will be doing a little quiz for you guys, so be prepared to answer some questions around weeks 1, 2, and 3. Some stuff that I talked about today, some stuff last week and the week before. It'll be like a half an hour quiz or something with maybe something like 10 or 15 questions, okay? See you next week.